I was searching for shaders on the internet and I found an example of shader art that looks something like this. And so I thought, can I adapt that code and make it work in Affinity Photo? And so here's what I came up with. I wasn't able to get everything to work, but I was able to get quite a bit of it to work. So here's my Affinity Photo code, and I don't have it doesn't run in real time, so it doesn't just run through this loop where the time is continually cycling. But I can put in a time variable. I set this one up to go from -1 to 1. And so then I can sort of simulate this as I drag the mouse across here to see the circles, and the colors, everything changing with time. So I can do that. I can put that back. I can go to change the number of rings, and I can change the the way the circles are set up here. So I can do quite a bit of this and change the scaling factors like that. Alright, so I'm going to show how to convert this code. I'll refer you to the other video to get the original source code. I'll put a link to the other video in the description for this video. But I'm going to go through and start with the blank one and then see if I can build this up a little bit at a time. This has a number of interesting features. For one thing, it uses an iteration. I'm not able to do an iteration, but I can sort of fake it. The other one is the time variable, which I can sort of fake. And then the other one is the gradient, the color gradient, which I can implement. So the color gradient is particularly interesting because it produces a wide range of colors from very few inputs. So if I look here, if I change this, I can introduce, just changing these 3 colors will produce a big change in the color gradient. Okay, so I'm going to go over these and try to explain what else is going on, and start with a very simple example and then build up to the complicated one that we see here. To get started, I'm going to delete this and I'm going to start with a blank one. I'm going to start with a 1024 by 1024. I filled it with black. I'm going to add a live procedural texture filter. And just going to add an empty one, set it to all 3 colors. I'm going to start with a variable v0, which is a vec2 of x and y, and times a divided by w. Add an a factor and bring that up, and then I'll just show what it looks like over here. v0 looks like that, and as I bring this up I just get more yellow. So I'm going to take and add another variable, and I'll call this one v, and that's equal to the fraction of v0. And then I can look at what v looks like, and there I get my repeating colors. Again, x is ranging from 0 to 1, and that's assigned to the red color. And then y is going from 0 to 1 this way, that's assigned to green. Okay, now we want to make a shape, and so a simple shape is a circle, and I'll just call it another variable, rd for radius, and that is equal to the length of v. And I'll just show rd down here. Now it's not centered, and so by going into my fraction, I can subtract off 0.5 to move that to the center. So now I have a circular radius centered at the center. Now I'm going to add a time control. I'll call it T, and it'll just, this I'll call cells. This one I'm going to call time. And so I could add time in to my radius variable over here if I wanted to, plus T, like that. And so when I move this, it changes like that. So I can get this motion going on. I'm going to change over to radians. Just follow the example. So I changed from degrees to radians. I could have done it the either way, but I'll do it that way to match the example. So the next thing I'm going to do is to take the sine of 2 times pi times rd. Now you may notice I don't have pi defined up here. It turns out it's a system variable set to be, guess what, pi. So we can do that. So now I get this circle. It's already looking like it has almost a circular shape to it. Next thing I'm going to do is take the absolute value of that. The sign goes positive and negative, so I'll just take the absolute value of that like that. And let's see what happens when I do this. So now I've got these changing circles. When I run the time variable, I've got these circles with changing radii like that. So that's pretty cool. Okay, now I'm going to take 1 over this. See what happens. Okay, so that is very, very white. But if I put in a 0.1 here, then I have this effect. Okay, so I can go all the way down from here, and I have these circles going in, or I can have them moving out, depending on which way I slide my slider. All right, so that's that. So I had to multiply this by a small number, 0.1. I may have to decrease that more before we're done here. They also use in the code a multiplier, b. So I'm going to put that one in. I'll just leave it be a real value. And that can control the number of rings that we have. So I'll call this rings, I guess. And now when I run my time, I can go backwards or forwards, and it'll change the rings as they're fading in and out. I could divide this by a factor. Let's divide it by a factor c. And I'll put that in as a value, and that can control the brightness. But if I do that, I need to bring this down to a much slower value, 0.02. So I'll set that to 8 for now. This is 0.02. Next thing I want to do is add a color gradient. And there's a formula. I'll put a link to where this came from. This color palette is by Inigo Quilez. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he has done a number of examples. You can watch his videos, and he has sort of a blog or a website where he goes over a lot of computer graphics articles. So I'm using this formula that he developed. So this is called variable COL equals, I'm going to have an AP plus a BP times cosine of 2 times pi times parent CP times the radius. So I'll link it to the radius. So RD is here is the control factor for this one, plus a DP, and then another parentheses. Oops, wrong one. okay, 2 parentheses, and then a semicolon. So that's color. Now I have to put in these, set up these vectors. So these are all vectors. One of them controls the color, which is the dp vector, controls the color. The other ones just sort of modulate it. So this is a procedurally generated color gradient. All right, I've got to add my color vectors. So I'm going to start with var ap equals vec3, and the first one is 0.5. And you can change these variables to get different effects, but the main one will be the dp vector. Next one is vector, variable bp, which is vector 3.5 also. So even though these are vec3, so if you put a 0.5 in here, it will assign a 0.5 to all 3 components when you create it. And then a CP, which is a vec3, CP equals vec3 of 1, and then variable dp, and this is one we get to change, and I could put in some values for this. I'm going to have r1, g1, and b1 as my variables, and I'll set them up as sliders down below. So this is, I got to put in dp equals vec3 of r1, g1, b1. So I'll set those up as sliders. So I'm going to add 1, 2, 3, r1, g1, and b1 down here. Okay, and then I can adjust those down here. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is to multiply this times my color. So now that I've got my color, hopefully it's going to work here. Just multiply this times the color. And voila! There are my colors. I can adjust the spectrum like this to get different color gradients. And I can adjust my time variable, and as these, since they're linked to the radius, they will change as I swing this time factor through all those different colors. So now I'm doing pretty well. I've got my colored rings, I've got this shader art example almost fully implemented here. The next part is to add a loop, and I can't do a loop in Affinity Photo with the procedural texture, but really there's only about 3 iterations of the loop, and so I'm going to do that instead. So I can just make 3 copies of my radius variable, 3 copies of everything else that I need to, and instead of doing a loop, I'll just make 3 copies of things. So that's how I'm going to fake my loop in Affinity Photo. So I'm going to set up variable v1 as a fraction of v0 minus 0.5, but I'm going to multiply this by, I'm going to just add a factor c down here, and so I'll multiply it by c. And c is set to 2, so it should come out okay. And now I need to create another radius for that. So I'll create a variable rd1, which is equal to the length of v1 plus t. So I'm going to put this in parentheses, copy that, and paste it over here, and then just add these 2 together. and change this to a 1. So now I've got my variables. I'm going to control the time factor on this one. Ooh. Okay, and then I can go the other way. Ooh. All right. And then for the third one, so I'm just going to do 3 sets of circles. And so I'm going to go ahead and do another, I need to set up another one of these. There might be a slicker way to do this, but this is the way I got it working. Put in a V2, and this one multiplied by a 2. I tried squaring that and changing that. It seems like works best if just multiplied by 2. I need to add a third radius variable. So I'll just copy this one and paste it there, and I'll call that rd2. And it's going to be based on v2 plus t. And now this is getting pretty long. I have a dual monitor so I can stretch this beyond the edge of my screen. And then I'll just add this one, grab 2 parentheses, Control C, and Control V. And change this one to the RD radius 2, like that. So that adds the third level of circles. And I'm just going to decrease this a little bit. I could decrease number of rings, and then I'm going to go through with my time variable like that, so you can see the total effect. Ooh, that's so awesome. Okay, and then I can change the gradient, the color gradient with these. So I have a little, so I can change up the color gradient to get different effects with that. All right. I could try some of the other tweaks. Affinity Photo does not have an exponential function, so I can't do an exponential drop-off. I know he does some other stuff in the video. You can watch that one, see if you can, if you want to try to implement some of the other stuff. But these were the main things I was interested in trying to do. So I'm just going to put this back here. All right. Let me know if you have any comments or questions, and thanks for watching.